Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the challenges faced by renters throughout the province, causing unexpected financial hardships for many. In some cases, these hardships may have even put them at risk of eviction. This can put an enormous strain on families, disrupting the lives of children, and possibly even leading to more debt as they struggle to deal with the costs of moving and starting all over again. And we know that we are not through this pandemic yet. We still have a long way to go until there is a full return to normal and complete economic recovery. That is why today I am honored to announce that our government is taking steps to address immediate needs created by the pandemic by providing $5.6 million to the Manitoba Nonprofit Housing Association to deliver a new program that will support stable housing for low to moderate income families. C'est pourquoi je suis ravie d'annoncer aujourd'hui que notre gouvernement prend des mesures pour répondre aux besoins immédiats créés par la pandémie en versant $5.6 millions à la Manitoba Nonprofit Housing Association pour offrir un nouveau programme qui soutiendra des logements stables pour les familles et faible revenue. The Manitoba Rent Bank will provide interest-free loans to tenants who are behind on their rent or need to move to more suitable housing, and support housing stability and for families who are unable to pay shelter costs due to unforeseen circumstances. The program will be administered through the Manitoba Nonprofit Housing Association and will be delivered regionally through local rent banks. Rent banks provide fast access crisis intervention loans that help families pay rent or overdue utility bills and avoid eviction. They are used in other jurisdictions and are recognized as best practice in stabilizing housing for those in need, and have been proven successful in helping to prevent homelessness. This is one more tool we can use to prevent homelessness and help stabilize households in Manitoba. And I look forward to positive results over this 2-year pilot. I also wanted to note that earlier this morning, our government announced that we are providing $12 million in grant funding to 10 municipalities throughout the province to help address affordable housing needs in these jurisdictions. Je tenais également à souligner que plus tôt ce matin, notre gouvernement a annoncé que nous allouons $12 millions en subvention à 10 municipalités de la province pour aider à répondre aux besoins en matière de logement adorable dans ces jurisdictions. This pandemic does not know geographic bounds, and COVID-19 has been equally disruptive to the lives of vulnerable Manitobans outside of Winnipeg. Lower-income families have been particularly hard hit. This funding will enable and empower some of our larger municipal partners, including Brandon, Dauphin, Flin Flon, Morden, Portage La Prairie, Selkirk, Steinbach, The Pas, Thompson, and Winkler, to create affordable housing in their communities for their vulnerable populations. Each municipality will determine how to best address housing affordability in their communities and will still be able to leverage additional sources of funding if desired. We know that the federal government's recently announced Rapid Housing Initiative has targeted funding in Winnipeg and Indigenous on-reserve communities only. So this provincial funding aligns with current need and provides a balanced approach to creating affordable housing opportunities across all of Manitoba. We know that some groups are more likely to experience barriers to housing, including Indigenous households, single-parent families, new Canadians, including refugees, youth-led households, low-income seniors, and people with physical or intellectual disabilities. Our government is committed to supporting these populations to access and achieve stable tenancies. And I'm confident this investment will support the creation of affordable housing and home ownership opportunities that will benefit these communities for years to come. I appreciate this opportunity to tell you about some of the great steps that our government is taking to provide better services to Manitobans. J'apprécie cette occasion de vous parler de certaines des grandes mesures prises par notre gouvernement pour offrir des meilleurs services aux Manitobans. As we continue to recover from the devastating effects of COVID-19, this funding will lay the groundwork for stronger communities well into the future. Thank you very much for your interest in this announcement today, and I'm more than happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Minister. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary and one follow-up question. Up first this morning from the Winnipeg Sun, James.
Yeah, good morning, Minister. What are you hearing in terms of the number of Manitobans needing help with rent? Are the numbers growing?
Absolutely. We know that Manitobans have experienced this COVID-19 pandemic differently, with some not having as much of an impact to their economic outlook and others devastated. And so we thought that a rent bank would certainly be able to help those who are struggling and facing short-term crises, that we can help them out with by offering them access to these low barrier loans, if you will.
And great. In terms of affordable housing, why only $12 million?
So we wanted to match what the federal government had recently announced through the Rapid Rehousing Initiative for the City of Winnipeg. We wanted to create equity in the province and offer this this money to other municipalities, because we know that there are housing issues in every municipality. And I do want to highlight our northern municipalities that have had quite a bit of struggle in terms of housing and helping those who are precariously housed and even experiencing homelessness. So we were able to look at other municipalities and distribute some money on a per capita basis, just to ensure that we are addressing needs throughout the entire province.
Thank you.
From CBC Manitoba, Ian.
Good morning, Minister. How many, when we speak of this rent bank, how many people do you anticipate will benefit?
As many who need the help. We know that the $5.6 million is a 2-year pilot, and we'll be assessing the program working with a nonprofit housing association on a regular basis to assess the uptake, if you will, and find out if we've got enough money in the rent bank, if we need to do something more to ensure that this is available to the Manitobans who need it the most, and whether or not the eligibility criteria is really matching the need out there for people who are experiencing short-term crises and at risk of being evicted out of their home and needing to move. And so ultimately we just want to keep as many families stable as possible. And so it's a little hard to predict in terms of how many families will be applying in the short while, but I'll be more than happy to make reports on the uptake of this program as we go along. As you know, this is the very first time this has ever been introduced in Winnipeg and Manitoba. Other major jurisdictions have rent banks. It's never been done here in Manitoba. So this is a first of its kind, and we look forward to seeing what kind of impact it's going to have on families. And I'll be more than happy to share that data with you as time rolls on.
As of last summer, there was around 9,000 households on the waiting list. The 12 million will help in rural areas, but undoubtedly a lot of those 9,000 households are within Winnipeg. What is the government going to do to, get those thousands of families into homes?
So I'm happy to report updated numbers for you today, Ian. We have 4,600 people waiting, down from that high mark of 9,000 families waiting to get into housing. So we know that still a lot of work to do, but we've tackled a good portion of our wait list. I'd also like to share with you that we have ensured housing for 800 people who were precariously housed or fleeing domestic violence. We've been able to get them into housing very quickly under our priority protocols that we have in place for housing. And we've also, since we formed office, we've created 714 new housing units in the province of Manitoba. And as you know, when we signed on to the National Housing Strategy with the federal government, that came with it a commitment to build 12.5% new housing units. And so as we continue to build more housing units, as we continue to address the needs of Manitobans through initiatives like rent banks and other initiatives, we're really wanting to move on it so that every family who needs housing has housing in the province of Manitoba.
From CTV Winnipeg, Kayla.
Hi, Minister. Just about the $12 million in grant funding, how were the 10 municipalities decided upon?
On their population. We looked at the next 10 largest municipalities in the province of Manitoba and allotted this money on a per capita basis.
Oh, okay. That's everything for me then.
We have time for a few more questions. Please proceed.
Hello. Can you just expand a little bit, Minister, just on, going from 9,000 to 4,000, families on the wait list? Well, what was the biggest initiative that was able to target that? What was the biggest initiative that was done to address this and families into homes?
One of the things that we're doing is we invested a historic amount of money in maintenance. We know that when we formed government, there was $1 billion in deferred maintenance in the housing stock. And when a housing unit is under repair, it can't be utilized. And so we've invested a historic amount of money in tackling that deferred maintenance backlog that we inherited. And so we're getting more of our existing units available for people to live in. And then it's a series of smaller projects. We renovated the 260 Toronto Street, which we had announced with the federal government that's under renovation, and those units will come online within a few months' time under the Rapid Rehousing Initiative that was launched in partnership with the federal government. And then we also announced $4.4 million this year, which was also a historic amount invested in security issues. So really making sure that these units are also secure and that people can feel safe when they're at home in their units. So that's made some more units being more attractive to families. We've also reduced barriers for entrance onto the into Manitoba housing. We know that in the previous practice of the previous government was to deny entrance into a Manitoba housing unit if they couldn't provide appropriate records of their tenancy history, tax returns, as well as having a good, clean tenant history record. We've reduced a lot of those barriers. We know that it's unreasonable to ask certain individuals for last year's tax return before we offer admittance into a Manitoba housing unit. So we've reduced those barriers to really meet people where they're at and find suitable housing. As you saw a few weeks ago when we announced the $2.56 million, $2.56 million for housing, immediate housing needs to help those who were experiencing homeless get into homes. And we got 50 units renovated and ready to go with not just housing, but also that wraparound support, whether it was supports for mental health or addiction issues. We stocked their cupboards with essential toiletries and some basic food items. And we have put nearly 40 out of those 50 units we've had people move into, which is a wonderful success story. That's 40 fewer people that will be sleeping precarious housing initiatives or even on the streets tonight, because we've been able to get people into those homes. So it's a very diligent and focused effort of the provincial government, along with the federal government initiatives, and working with municipalities to tackle homelessness and help people who are precariously housed find stable long-term housing.
Do you know how many vacant units we have now?
I can get that number for you, Ian. I don't have that at the top of my head.
You've mentioned some of these other initiatives, including the federal funding, building new housing units, 700 some. Is there, a year from now, do you know where that wait list is at?
I can't predict. I mean, as you know, last year at this time, we had 9,000 people on a wait list, and we targeted that and said that's just not acceptable. We need to be aggressive. And so from 9,000 down to where we're at today with 4,600 people on that wait list, it requires a lot of diligence. I also need to share with you that we've done some work to clean up the list and making sure that there's no duplication or errors on there where somebody might be erroneously listed twice on a wait list and counted twice. So we've also made sure that our wait lists are accurate and really reflective of the priorities of the community. So I would hope that we will continue to tackle that wait list and reduce those barriers to housing and create more affordable units, so that we have all Manitobans who want a place to live have a place to live. That is our goal.
Do you know how many duplicates there may have been?
I have that number off the top of my head, but I'll get you that information if it's possible for me to pull that record.
Any other questions for the minister? Well, thank you. This concludes today's media briefing.